go by and call, but I can't draw very good. I have to draw everything now. You know, everything I do, I have to draw, and I'm wishing I'd have paid attention.
Run out of line?
What's that?
Run out of line, you just call them off?
Yeah, I'm a pretty good line caller. I'm trying to do a demonstration on that. You know, as you had mentioned, my pappy always said, you know, son, if you can't be a good example, be a horrible warning. Don't be nothing in between. So I'm trying to fill either boat. I'll either be a good example or a horrible warning. One of the two. And I'm going to get busy here in a minute. Let me just go. I have to ask this. Yeah, basically, I'm gonna present how I skin the cat. You know, and it's, you know, we all skin cat different way. They all taste the same, so it's the skinning process we go through. You know, if you don't like it, go on. We're going to talk about a few things. I always believe starting in anything, ironwork's all got a beginning. I don't care if it's a gate, you know, a leaf hook or whatever. It's got a beginning. Beginning, the middle, and the end, just like a story. And if you don't execute the first one well, the second one ain't going to look very good, and neither is the end. So, that being said, I should go over there and draw, but I'll do it right here. Everybody knows what a taper is, right? Taper. Head the material down to a point. Say square taper. Where's the beginning? Up here or down here?
Depending on how long it takes.
No, where's the beginning? Okay. That's where I differ. Because my thought is the beginning, if both of you are taper point, the smallest part's the beginning, and you can throw it back however long you want. And the reason why I believe it, again, don't quote me this. If I was going to make a taper on this, and I'm going to get this flush, what makes steel move? What makes it move easily?
The top and bottom pieces of metal, the dies,
Okay. So that will move it that way quicker, right? Because we've got a convex surface, narrow spot of contact, right? Is that true? That?
Yeah, but either one of them. I think the one on top of the anvil is more aggressive.
But why is what I'm trying to get is why is it moving quicker?
Because it's smaller surface area contact.
So you're using the same amount of mass. Velocity is going to overcome mass. One, so I increase my speed. Same mass, I could move more versus using a hammer. I know you all. So what I want to talk about is isolating the force. Whether you're chiseling, putting less chisel on, it's going to go quicker. Using a top tool or that. So that being said, if that moves it, and that moves it. See that corner right there? If I use the same stroke and hit that corner, aren't I applying a lot of force to the smallest area? And no matter where that corner is, if I hit that, it's going to go quicker and easier. Then if I'm back here making a taper, and if I hit here, how much steel am I hitting? I'm hitting 1 inch. The anvil's a hammer moving 1 inch, and you'll still get it there. You may have a convex hammer, but it's going to take, in physics, it's going to take more force to go to the end. So if I'm either going to use that, or I'm going to think about this little sharp point. And if I attack that with the center of my hammer only, using the same amount of mass and velocity, it ought to go easier and quicker, no matter where that is. So isolating the force. It's like splitting wood. It's going to split wood with a split maul, and I rear it in here and I hit it this hard, and with the flat, it goes gunk and puts a dent. So I turn to the axe end. Same amount of force, same amount of hit it, which goes deeper. Now of course the axe, I've isolated the force on the smaller area. So I think isolating your force goes. The reason why I like especially on an anvil, not as much on the power hammer, is to get that end started to a point. Well then if I got to make 1,000 of them with 1 1/8 inch taper, I cut them all the same length, and I want them all this end to come out the same. I make my point, create my taper to the length I want. Plus, as you make a taper, you have a taper, and now I've got a point, I've got a ridge line up here, right at the start of the taper. So that's the top of the taper. If my hammer's hitting the top of that taper like that, that's going to go quicker because it's hitting that ridge, and it'll just keep growing, and cleaning it out. So isolating the force. So I'm just going to kind of warm up with a couple of little things, and I know you all see what's going on. And I'm going to try to do this throughout the day. I'm usually not successful at it because I get going. So I'm going to slow down a little bit. I've got the Indian arrow in here. We're going to make the arrow. We're going to do the blacksmith way of stripping the wire and the copper, anneal it, and we're going to weld the copper. I use a MIG to weld the copper on to do my wraps. He's got a stick. It might take me a hit or two because I've got to scratch it, hitting my spot. But I did do it this morning, but it's not as easy as I usually do. So I'm going to make an Indian arrow, and just the horseshoe rasp stake is just a couple little different tools. You all seen it done, but it's something I do because one of the first guys that I ever learned from stopped long enough to show me something, and so he's passed away, so I just do it. I always think about him first thing. And I always think about where I came from. I mean, for me, everybody's different. I've got mentors. I've got an older gentleman, my father, and again, I don't get into politics, but I believe God's blessed me with something, and I always give credit for where I think it's due. And you do however you want, don't care if you live in dirt, whatever. But you should appreciate always where you come from. So the Indian arrow says, God, the shaft doesn't really matter what it is. This happens to be 8 pounds, 25 inches long. Arrowhead. On this one is 5/8 square. You can use half. Or, and that can be 6 inches long or whatever, just enough to hold it. My feather is 3/16 by 1 by probably about 4 1/4 on that. And then this is probably number 4. I usually use about a 14 gauge wire for number of flat tails. So copper wire. And I used to do production shops. So there's this one, that belongs to Jim. I've got another one, a big one here somewhere that we'll find here. I use these mostly a lot for bending around jigs because I can come this way and then I can swap it if I need to go the other way. So I come into a jig and pull it to like a scroll jig, and then if I'm coming around the curve the other way, I just turn it this way and I can go that way. So I use these a lot. And,
That's a back scratch.
what's that?
That's a back scratch.
Yeah, back scratch. Wherever you want to scratch.
Somebody else's back. Scratch the pile back.
So it takes just a second to heat up. I generally, for snakes, I've just gotten to where I like my strips first. This one's got a little hole in it, so I can put the tang inside it. As you'll notice here pretty quick, I'll scatter, I'll be looking like a bomb, somebody's popping a grenade in. That's why blacksmiths have so many tools. We can't find half of them, so we just buy about 6 of them. So, on the snake, this was some hammer that was just round, made a little fullering hammer. You all can make one. And I use a sledge block, I use the step of the anvil, I've opened the vise up this wide when I start to shape this thing, and this was just a piece of pipe cut off. The arrow shaft, I've got the arrow shaft in the center in here.
Hey!
Yes, sir.
You're going to have to, when you talk, you have to talk this way.
Well,
I can't read your lips when I
how
ain't that
about
way.
sign language?
I can't.
Yeah. I'm just going to texture the arrow shaft. Not going to spend a lot of time with it. Just get some like you whittled it. And don't be afraid to give me some cussing. Oh, I was telling him, ask all the questions you want, but if you have criticism, leave them to yourself because I got a real poor self-esteem. Don't want to know. So Y'all got lots of rattlesnakes here or none? Just water moccasins.
We have some.
So if anybody tells you that a snake in a hole, if you jerk them by the tail, can't bite, come out backwards, you can. You can. And if you stick Copenhagen into a rattlesnake's mouth, you'll straighten out just like you stuck rebar in it. You'll just go straight out.
Right?
Yeah.
Hell, I have a heart attack watching y'all do this.
Yeah, I was we had a little family bar in town, and they just bring the kids there, drop them off after the thing, because it's just, until dark 30, then it wasn't a family bar anymore. But the guy brought a rattlesnake in there. He got instructed when they strike the cage, that thing was boink. Hillbillies have fun in our country too.
Hey, well, you know, about 60, 70 miles south of here was the only tobacco spitting contest for years.
So I'm just going to give us some protection. So that when we clean it up, it's got don't look like this. It's really going to shadow. We want to get that rasp on. It's going to take a minute for this fire to get warmed up. This should get really quickly. A little bit about, and we were talking about this again. It may make no sense to you, but you may not believe it or like it. An animal height for me is a comfort factor. I like, as a general rule, I don't have a striker a lot. I like when I come out of the fire that my steel blade, that my arms nice extended, flat, I stood up straight, and I'm at the end of my hammer blow without my arm being completely extended. Comfortable for me. We were talking about Lyle, and he moves steel probably way better than I do. Why was anvils a fist height in the books? Well, if you hold your fist up to your crotch, it's almost always flat when you push your thing. So, you know, that works really well. Where that would make you talk high. So that don't work as well. What I find teaching in the classes, and this may help you in your teaching, because I see people, I have people that come in, maybe what's that? Do that again? I look like a little bull. What did he say? What did he say? So in the classes, you know, I got anvils of all heights, but I find that if somebody hasn't been smithing a lot, and the anvil's fist height, that when they come out, and I'm telling them what to do, they'll come out like this, okay? See, they're comfortable here, but they came out like that. So their very first hit is they made a banana. If your steel's banana in all the time, that anvil's probably not the right height for you, because you're not comfortable there. You were comfortable there. And plus, you hear that rattle? Hear that? Now, that's moving steel, that's bending steel. So I can hear that across the room, and I can tell them, drop your tongue hands. Like if they're making a taper. As they start to make a taper, they make a taper here. Look at every time you hit it, then they're bending at the first 3 hits, and then sometimes they hit it. But if they'll drop, there's a difference in that. So that rattle noise is something I always watch and listen for in class. Okay, I think my rasp is about on. I make arrow lamps, floor, table, 3 arrows, scrolls, I make towel bars. I make what my friends call the ugliest thing I ever made, but I used to sell a lot of them, is I make an arrow and, you know, on 2 horsehead horseshoes and 2 steers or 5 steers, or a cowboy and 2 steers on it, but they just sell just all the time. So I'm going to start my rasp, making the head, and I'm going to put it on the corner of this anvil. So here's the flat of the rasp, and I'm going to try to attack the 2 corners of the rasp, just barely, just to get him to tip. So I'm going to come out like that, with the point in the middle of his nose, and some corners, some rasp have more corners, some don't. And that little corner right there is I'm going to hit it and just get it to tip, just a little bit. Come over the top, hit that one, just get over the tip. And then I'm going to turn it on its back, and those two spots there are my targets. And I'm going to drive them back into the steel this way and this way. Versus like this. If I do this, it's going to roll up, it's going to be a pencil head, a little red racer. And I want it to be kind of a heart-shaped rattlesnake head. There, those corners, just get it tucked. Once it tucked, I'm coming in from the front. Oops, that's a little slip. I don't want to send it out in the crowd. Let me retighten here. Sorry, my fault. One more time. And I can use tongs on this. These aren't the ones I like. I like the ones with a hole in it, and this is like a tong one.
Like more of the hole.
Okay. So again, I'm going to drive those back into the cell, and as soon as they touch, I'm done. So I got to leave a little hole in it. That's for the head, or for the tongue to come out. And again, if I start it up here, it's going to pull the steel with it, and it's going to get a long, skinny head. Okay? That's the hardest part. The rest goes pretty fast. This is a monotonous part. Everything's got a monotonous part in it. I sure haven't found too many things that are easy that people throw money at. I don't know what to do. I usually go at home, have my vices there, and like something like that, I don't hammer it flat. I just take the vise and squeeze it down one way, squeeze it down the other way, it's flat. Squeeze it in the vise to straight. The vise is great for making things fit and flat. I probably won't burn a hole in it. Okay, so I'm going to take my era. I'm going to go right here. This is the part, I think I'll sue somebody for putting everything so high all the time, you know? I'm really a pretty big guy, I'm just twisted tight. What is that? It's an blacksmith extension. Hey. Now I know how you guys all feel.
I'm going to trust them.
Here's where I'm going with this. I'm going to go ahead and dress this feather look like that. Hot cut. So, yeah. Find my hole down. There's a hot cut. Anybody here new at smithing, completely new? Okay. Okay, so this is called the hot cut, basically. It's kind of a fat one, but it's got a convex. Instead of being straight across, it's convex. The thinner, if I leave a shoulder on, you know how a cold chisel has a shoulder because it's got a abrupt taper. That shoulder, as you go in, will push. So it makes it it's harder to cut. So the less shoulder it has, the smoother it's going to cut in. So the thinner that would have been, the quicker it's going to cut. I've reduced the friction. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and hold it back. Not real hot there. I always chisel. We'll talk about what I believe the best way to hot cut, get a line down the center which will do perfect the first time, every time, and never make a mistake. But I usually always chisel from behind or in front of my anvil. That way I can judge the center. Okay. Then we'll start with my recut. Let the coffee shake some. And I'm going to send it almost to the guess I should have probably some water to quench my tool. I don't have it handy. So normally I would go ahead and finish that and cut it loose, but I've got the V-cut. I can bring it over here to the anvil and hit it with that and snap it probably now, but I'll go ahead and cut it on the aluminum. I'm going to send this snake. I believe, personally, always hammer the way you always hammer. In other words, this hammer, you're always doing this whether you're striking, right, Lyle? You know, you're not over here doing so much of that, but you're always, this hammer always hammers. So when you find yourself like a monkey on a football thing, then this is in the wrong spot. And it's hard to judge. So always hammer the way you always hammer. Life's better. Let your tongue here do whatever it's going to do. So I'm going to come in right behind that fold, right into that fold, just right behind it. I'm not going to leave any slack. And I'm going to bed her down to the swedge. Okay? A swedge, this is basically a swedge. This is basically a fuller. A swedge is a female, it receives it, and the fuller sends her home. So I'm going to lay it in there, right behind that. I'm going to go till it touches before I leave it. And I'm going to get it all down there, what's hot. I'm going to lay it on the anvil, just tap until it lays flat. That'll keep the curve out of it. So I just tapped it to get it flat again. I got a little curve. I'm going to swap ends down, finish it into the tank. So that's all I'll be doing to this. You'll notice, well, better quit talking. I can't really think too good, Doc. I can't think too good anyway. So once it's all textured, as you probably know, when you're straightening, you always turn the crown up, the hump up. You can't push that down, the hump up. And the less you have on the anvil, the less movement you're going to fight. As far as when you're straightening. You know, if I want to, I got a bow here and I put this whole thing in and hit there, the end pops up sometimes. So if I get something straight first before you move on and then go on down this way, I'm just sitting there stuff out again. Don't just willy-nilly hit something straight, and then, you know, work from there. And again, a lot of ways to skin the cap. Squeeze it in the light. Big bar, a lot of times I'll just whack it on the anvil to straighten. Sometimes I just give it a whack. It's getting heavy like a stair rail. Just let the steel straight. I'll show you where we're going to go with it in a minute. I'll throw it over there. We're going to do a little grinding on it. Lunchtime. I'm going to finish this. And so in this one, I want to get right into the tang. Right where the tang. That's the tang. And I want to get right into it. And I'm just going to send her home. Leave it till I get down. Now it'll go really fast. That's the slow part. Again, I just tap it to the anvil to get it flat. Get some twist down with it. Now we'll roll up. When I get ready to roll this up, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put about 2 3/4 off the edge of the anvil, roughly. And I'm going to just hit this edge and hit it right at the anvil and work a little bit, and then turn it 2 3/4. And work this, trying to keep the seam going down the center. I'm not trying to roll it together. Once it's about that far apart, the seams, then I'll lay him on his back and just tuck him in. Okay. And I won't do this even though I'll preach it. I always tell them, think of the forge, work at the anvil. Think about what you're going to do there before you come over here. Because I'll see them, you know, you're learning something, they'll come out, they'll hot, they'll come out and start doing the blacksmith Tai Chi, you know. And then they get over here and it's cold and they're beating on it. So your tools, if this is a hot cut here, this should be laid the way you're going to pick them up. Snap, pick, tongue, down, back, up. I personally in my shop, when I'm ready to come out of the forge. Now I'm ready. I got my hammer rested. This is where it's going to be. I'm not holding it in the air all the time. That's it, because I might be doing 1,000 things, and I'm going to get it done. Okay, I'm going to roll the snake up. So have your tools the way you should do them. That being said, I'll have them scattered.
And he won't have to look at his hammer to know which side he's got to put it strike with.
You know, I always
That's
put
what
it down.
I do that too.
And so it's just a good idea. It saves time to have your tools. The way, if you have to reach over here and pick the chisel up, grab the hammer, you got a little piece, it's already getting pulled. Try to think about what you're going to do before you hit it.
Coming out at,
think about it.
coming out at a good heat first is a good thing to do too.
Okay.
He's not going to take all day long to do this project.
Yeah.
Now, here we go. About 2 quarters right there. Down, 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 over, down, down, down. Just try to keep the seam in the middle. Once he's there, I'm going to tuck it in. And you'll get a little twist in him. I'm not worried about that yet. Looks like you've been run over by a school bus.